Welcome back to Wittenberg Academy's Greek 1 course. Our book is Gleason's Greek Primer. And we are ready for Lesson 6, which is on page 27. We're going to learn the aorist, indicative active. The aorist denotes simple past time, as in elusa, I loosed. In most verbs, the aorist active is formed by adding sa to the verb stem. Okay, how I encourage you to think about the aorist being formed is you have your dictionary form of the verb, so in this case, luo. You keep the stem, lu. To the front, you add the past augment, so the epsilon. And then you add a sigma to the end, and then you add a set of endings. And so if you turn the page to page 28, you see those endings there. So you can see what I'm talking about in the first column, the aorist of luo. You keep the stem, you add the epsilon augment to the front, you add a sigma to the stem, and then you add the endings a, as, e, amen, ata, an. An, as, e, amen, ata, an. So that's how you should think about forming the regular or first aorist, or it's also called the weak aorist. As you can see back on page 27, section 82. Some verbs have a more simple and primitive aorist formed from the verb stem and inflected like the imperfect. So balo, the stem is ball, and the imperfect is ebalon. The aorist is ebalon. So it just drops an L. Or lepo, the stem is lip, the imperfect is elepon, the aorist is elepon. So those are irregular. They're called second aorist, or they're called strong forms, strong aorists. And you simply have to memorize when you learn a verb which is which. You learn its principal parts. As we go through the chapters and we learn more about the verb system in Greek, when you learn verbs, you'll learn which ones have these irregular principal parts. So on page 84, you can see the regular aorist is luo. Luo has a regular aorist. You add an augment, you add a sigma to the end, and then you have the endings a, as, e, amen, ata, an. Same for pempo. You add an augment to the beginning of the stem, you add a sigma to the end of the stem, so of course pempo, since its stem ends in the letter P or pi, when you add a sigma to it, you get the letter psi. So epimpsa, epimpsas, epimpsa, epimpsamen, epimpsata, epimpson. And then you have your strong aorist. Your strong aorist, you simply have to know the form. You have to know that the aorist of lepo is elepon. You have to know that stem. And then your endings are the same as for the imperfect. An, es, e, amen, eta, an. So again, out of this lesson, he's giving you a few of these to memorize. And so back in section 82, you should have a vocabulary form, ebalon, and then the answer should be, this is the aorist of balo. You should have one, elepon, that's the aorist of lepo. Okay, back on page 28. The aorist of ago is irregular, so you need a vocabulary card for egagon. So that's the aorist for ago, egagon. The first aorist, exa, is rare. Echo has a second aorist, eskan, eschan. You want to have a vocabulary word for that eschan is the aorist for echo. Of course, we do this all the time in English as well. The past tense of I eat is not I eated, but which would be regular, but I ate. The past tense for I have is not I halved, but I had. So, it's a common part of any language. There are exceptions to the rules, and this is a major one in Greek. So you simply, as we begin to learn verbs, you need to learn which ones have irregular aorist. Make note of them, study them, memorize them. Okay. And section 85 on page 28, a rule of syntax. A neuter plural subject generally takes a singular verb, as in ainda penta paidia. Ainda penta paidia. There were 5 children, but it takes the singular verb ain instead of the plural verb ason. Okay, that's the lesson. Make cards for those aorist endings and for how to build the aorist. You know, epsilon plus the stem plus the sigma plus the endings a, as, amen, ata, an. And then also your irregular aorist, plus the aorist stem plus the imperfect endings, on, esse, amen, ata, an. You can pause the tape now, try to work out the translations as best you can, come back and check your work. Sentence 1. Heuran lithos kalous into pedio. Heuran lithos kalous into pedio. I or they found. I think that's a tricky one. I don't think he told you that heuran, that word there, is the aorist first person singular indicative active of heurisko, the verb for I find. And if you look in the back of the book in the little dictionary there for heurisko, which is on page 318, second column, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth entry down. Page 318, second column, the 5th entry down, heurisko. Here you can see an example of the 6 principal parts, and these are all irregular for this word. Heurisko, that's the first principal part, that's the present indicative active. The second principal part is the future. Heureso, heureso. The third principal part is the aorist. Heuran, heuran. The fourth principal part is the perfect. Heureka, heureka. The perfect indicative active, first person singular. The fifth principal part, heuremai, heuremai, is the perfect indicative middle passive voice. And heurethein is the 6th principal part, heurethein, which is the aorist passive. The aorist passive. So those are your 6 principal parts. Do they list those out nicely for you in this dictionary for a regular verb? Let's look at luo. Yes, they do. So luo on page 325, first column, second from the bottom. So there are the regular principal parts. Luo, luso, elusa, lelica, lelamai, elethane, eluthane. So you can remember, it's good to know it now, you might as well, that the principal parts in Greek are the present indicative active, the future indicative active, the third principal part is the aorist indicative active, the fourth principal part is the perfect indicative active, the fifth principal part is the perfect middle passive voice, and the sixth principal part is the aorist passive. So you should write that down, what the principal parts are. Don't worry so much about learning them for every verb you're learning just yet. We'll build on that as we go, but it is something to know. We have these in English as well. You have to know the principal parts of the verbs before you'll know them. So the regular principal parts in English, learn is a regular verb. I learn, I learned, I have learned. So learn, learned, have learned. That's the principal parts of the verb to learn. The verb eat is irregular. I eat, I ate, I have eaten. You simply can't know how to work all the verbs unless you know their principal parts. True in English, it's true in Greek and Latin as well. Well, back to page 28, section 86, our translation. Sentence 1 is translated, I found good stones in the field. Sentence 2, Tada tekna tu angelu evela tus litus eis tan pataman. Tanda tekna tu angelu evela tus litus eis tan pataman. Where's the verb? Evela. Parse the verb. Tell me everything about it. It's third person singular. It's aorist, this strong irregular aorist from Balo. It's indicative and it's active. It means he, she, or it through. Ta tekna is the subject. Remember, neuter nouns in the plural take a singular verb. So the children through, that's the skeleton of your sentence. The children of the messenger, tu angelu, genitive, translate it with of. The children of the messenger threw the stones, accusative, so it's the direct object, threw the stones into the river. Sentence 3. Eschen de pentaploia into corrio. So, what is the verb? Eschen. That is third person singular, aorist, indicative active, that irregular aorist from echo. He, she, or it had. He had, what did he have? Pentaploia, 5 boats in the region. Into corrio. Sentence 4. Tis effugen ek tu hieru. Tis effugen ek tu hieru. What's the verb? Effugen. Parse effugen. There. I skipped the irregulars. There it is. On page 28, there in the middle, form second aorist from foigo, or fugo, or feugo. People pronounce it all those different ways. You'll hear different people pronounce it those different ways. So its aorist is effugan, and there's heurisco. They told you that its aorist stem was heuran, so its aorist is heuran. So effugan in sentence 4 is aorist, indicative active, third person singular. He, she, or it fled. So tis effugan, who fled out of the temple. Ek tu hieru. Sentence 5. Elusan tus hippus kai epaisan tus kakus dulus. Elusan tus hippus kai epaisan tus kakus dulus. So there we have 2 verbs, we have 2 clauses connected with kai, meaning and. The first verb is elusan. Parse that. It is aorist, indicative, active, third person plural. They loosed. They loosed the horses. The horses is accusative because it's the direct object. They loosed the horses. And epaisan, aorist, indicative, active, third person plural, and they struck the wicked slaves. Sentence 6. Egagangar tus hippus eis tan hieran. Egagangar tus hippus eis tan hieran. The verb, egagan, that irregular aorist from ago, either first person singular or third person plural. I led or they led. Gar just means for. For they led the horses. That's in the accusative, so you know it's the direct object. They led the horses into the temple. 7. Ta padia tu agathu anthropu ukein kaka. Ta padia tu agathu anthropu ukein kaka. The verb is ein, he, she, or it was. That's imperfect, third person singular. It goes with the neuter plural ta padia. Remember, neuter plurals take singular verbs. So the children were. The children tu agathu anthropu. The children of the good man, ukein kaka, were not bad. Sentence 8. Akelusa, that's a hard one to say, akelusa. You'll often hear me say that epsilon, upsilon just as a oo sound, but it could. Some people will say it akelusan, and some people will say it akeleusan. Akeleusa, datapadia again tahamatia. Akeleusa ta datai blah. Akeleusa datapadia again tahimatia. There we go. So, akeleusa, that is our nice regular aorist, third person singular, and a note comes to me, okay? And I'm almost done, so I'll finish that. I'll get to that note in a moment. He, she, or it ordered. He, she, or it ordered the children. Again, you have a note there. That's the infinitive. So to drive, to lead, or to grab, to bring their cloaks, the cloaks. And sentence 9. Eminen de hoiangeloi epitus ploiois kai ethuan tois the ois. Eminen de hoiangeloi epi tois ploiois kai ethuan tois the ois. The verb is eminon. Eminon. This is another strong aorist. He, she, or it, first person singular or third person plural. Here it's third person plural. They remained. So eminon. Or minnow. Excuse me. This is just our nice. This is just our nice imperfect. So they were remaining. The angels. The messengers were remaining on the boats, and ethuan, they were sacrificing to the gods. So that's a good trick he threw in there. When you get to working with aorist, all of a sudden you see an imperfect. You might think, oh, that's a strong aorist. Well, no, you have to remember that eminon, there's no different stem there. It's just our augment plus our stem plus our imperfect endings. That's just the imperfect tense. Same thing with ethuan there. Very good. All right, so study that up. You may want to review the translations this week as things begin to get more complicated, and practice parsing those verbs. That's a good way to know if you're doing enough work with your memory of your forms. Is can you parse a verb and determine its person? Is it first, second, or third person? Is it singular, plural, person, number? And then tense, mood, and voice. Present indicative active, aorist indicative active, future indicative active, whatever the case may be. So hit those forms hard, and then you will be ready to proceed to lesson 7.